The main event can make or break a show. It doesn't matter how good the undercard is, if the main event is a stinker, the entire card can be tainted.
Here on Main Event Maniacs, we will revisit some of the most memorable main events in sports entertainment history, good and bad across various promotions and eras of professional wrestling. I'm Jay and happy to be joined by the Cadillac to my semi truck, good friend and co host Brian.
Thanks, Jay. Today, we're discussing a match that is near and dear to my heart because I was actually in attendance for this one. John Cena, the newly crowned WWE Heavyweight Champion, battles the man he dethroned at WrestleMania, JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield, whatever you want to call him, in an I Quit match at Judgment Day 2005 from my home state of Minnesota.
Absolutely, man. I had forgotten that this was one of the early Cena feuds as champion. And watching, we're doing this because John Cena is in his last year now and he's champion again and he's heel and all of that stuff. Most over heel probably in the last 20 years, but whatever. So he's doing that thing, but you got to appreciate what John Cena was in the early 2000s and what he was for this company. And when you go back and watch a match like this, you realize they had a thing with him. And this was in an era of wrestling that I forgot how violent this stuff could be and how absolutely horror movie they could go in beating the hell out of each other. I played video games of wrestling where there were all these backstage brawl sessions, half of which I think stem from this match. Like a lot of the stuff that you could do in those old video games on the PS2, you got from this match. And man, what a wild one. But moreover, you being there, I can't wait to hear your recollections of this 20 years later.
This, if I'm not mistaken, is John Cena's first world champ or heavyweight championship reign, right?
I think so. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think this was
Mhm.
his first one of 17. So this is kind of a big
Wow.
deal. He won it at the WrestleMania before this, but this was his first real big title defense since winning the championship. And I'm really excited about this. Now, full disclosure, I hated the Doctor of Thugonomics. I did not like that character. I did not relate to that character. It annoyed the piss out of me. But that said, now I look back at it and go, okay, yeah, good stuff.
You get what they were doing. It
Yeah.
was on the clips of like, what if we had an actually big, more physical, more athletic Marky Mark, and we just ran with
Marky
that.
Mark and the Funky Mark.
He
Yes.
really is that guy, and we were leaning into all the Boston culture and all that stuff. And look, say what you will about John Cena, the guy had worked his butt off to get to this point and
Absolutely.
stuff, and he looked like $1 million. And he looks great now for his age, but he looked tremendous at this point. And he had a whole shtick, but none of it was like it didn't look boring. You know what I mean? Like where guys
Mhm.
would strut and point at the crowd. It was pumping up the Reeboks and it was flexing out. And it was wearing the chains and the spinner belt, which was like the most disrespectful thing you could do to the title belt, because the title belt they had switched from at that point is one of the ugliest title belts they've ever had, in my opinion. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, but
The
I would.
undisputed title one.
Yeah, that was a lame looking belt. And I remember unlocking that on a game once and going like, and why? Because I'm never going to use that. But the spinner was cool. I was not a big fan of the gimmick, the Doctor of Thugonomics thing, but I got it. And I got what he was trying to do. And I give Cena a lot of credit for he's writing that whole thing himself. He's in there doing the rap. He's
freestyling the whole thing.
He's
Yeah.
the whole gimmick. I mean, he really was. And I never got to the point where I felt like, oh gosh, I'm tired of them shoving John Cena down my throat. I'm like, no, please, more John Cena. He's the most interesting thing in this company in a lot of ways. To me, I loved Cena and I still love Cena. And I think he was the guy that through all of this stuff, and there were some major stars in the 20 years here we're talking about, he has lasted the test of time because the guy puts in great work. He knows how to work the crowd, the mic, the whole bit, and he can do lots of stuff. As we'll see, this match is not something he would do 10 years later. It's definitely not something he would do nowadays. I don't think under any circumstances. And moreover, I don't know that the WWE would go for this these days the way that they did back then.
Well, I think they would these days, actually, with Triple H in charge. They wouldn't if Vince was still in charge. But here's the thing, like, the thing that got me to turn my attitude towards John Cena was his match against the Big Show.
Yeah.
I think that was at WrestleMania 20, I, I believe, and he hit him with the FU, which
The
now it's called
attitude
the attitude
adjustment.
adjustment. Right?
Yeah.
He hit him with that, and it was incredible. And I couldn't believe someone could lift the Big Show on their shoulders like that, because this is a big guy,
Yeah.
and hold him there, and then flip him over like
T-
that. It was crazy.
Tells you a lot about Paul White too, because he'll help you. You know.
Oh, well, for sure. But even
Yeah.
so, that's still
But
500 pounds on your back.
but he sold the hell out of it too.
It was great.
And it's
And that,
it was akin to Andre, going down with
yeah,
Hogan. It was
but
a
that was
similar
for like
moment.
2 seconds. John Cena
Yeah.
held this guy up there.
Oh yeah, because you got to go longer with
It
the
was
sequel,
crazy.
baby. Yeah.
So that's what really turned me on John Cena. I said, okay, this guy's good.
Now I want to hear though when we get to the scene how you got to the match, all that stuff. We're going to get to that, but I need you to give people the build up to how we got to this point with this, because we've already said Cena's won the title, but how did we get to Cena and JBL here in this I Quit match?
All right, so let's go back to John Cena, fresh off the movie set where he filmed the movie The Marine. That's right, the Mrs. series, as it would be after this version.
Wasn't
And-
Randy Orton in one of those too?
Oh God, probably. They made like 7 or 8 of them. It was crazy. But John Cena was the original Marine, and he had just wrapped up filming that, and was once again the United States champion when he entered into the infamous Royal Rumble match that not only saw he and Batista go over the top rope and hit the floor at the exact same time. You couldn't plan that.
No.
You couldn't plan it. They hit at the exact same time. But also, this is the one Royal Rumble where Vince McMahon trounces his way to the ring, tries to slide in, and he blows both quads doing so. And so you see him sitting in a corner yelling at people to restart this match. The most hilarious thing I've ever seen on a pay-per-view. He blew them both out and couldn't stand up. It was amazing. And so the match restarted, and Batista would eventually win this match as it was planned. But holy crap, that was hilarious.
It's one of the greatest botch things that you see. You the curtain got pulled back, and Vince is not playing Mr. McMahon at that moment. He's playing Vince McMahon and chewing his employees out on live broadcast.
And let me tell you, if you can, go out and look up Edge talking about this
It's
exact
hilarious
moment in time at one of his comedy events, because he was the man who was eliminated by Batista right before this happened. So he was walking back up the entrance when McMahon came trouncing out the entrance. The way he talks and tells about it is the best. I highly recommend that.
It's a great story, and you know what? We're gonna have to go and revisit that Royal Rumble because getting to it was even wilder than how it ended. But yeah,
Yes.
no, I remember that, and we'll never forget Vince. It's like the funniest thing you'll ever see. It's like half a person yelling at you because he's sitting on the ground. It's like a kid yelling.
And
at
he can't move
adults.
his legs.
No,
Can't
and
move
then but being in pure Vince mode, he gets out of the ring and walks himself back to the back and drives himself to the hospital so he can go get those sewn back up.
Just crazy stuff. But yes, so Batista punches his ticket to WrestleMania, but John Cena would then earn his chance at WrestleMania by defeating Kurt Angle at No Way Out.
Great match, by the way. Really good match.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This kicks off the feud with JBL and his cabinet, as we'll talk about. Cena would drop the U.S. title to Orlando Jordan. Oh, I can't even believe that happened. Before going on to win the WWE Championship from JBL at WrestleMania. Enter the spinner title. Now, he had a spinner U.S. title. Now he's got a spinner WWE Championship title. JBL would go on to claim that he was still the proper champion because he still had the quote-unquote real WWF Championship in his possession, and this set up our match at Judgment Day.
Yeah, let's talk about the JBL character for a second, though, because he had played he had been an acolyte and he'd been lots of things, but now he's kind of a little bit of him in real life. If you don't know, John Bradshaw Layfield's actually a really good finance guy and had been really good at investments. And so they played up kind of this, what if J.R. Ewing from Dallas was a badass and could beat the shit out of you? And it was not a bad move, because before this point, I just always thought of JBL as just this big dude that had this huge clothesline. He looked like if Stan Hansen had a son that wrestled, this would have been JBL, but he wasn't really that over interesting. He got into interesting spots, but I didn't think he ever did anything cool. The JBL character was great, driving out with that Cadillac with the horns and the big hat and all that stuff. I thought it was good. It's a good heel move.
He was a good heel. I definitely agree with you there. This was by far the only time that I enjoyed the JBL character. I never cared for the APA. I always thought they were boring and stupid. I never cared for his cowboy gimmick that he came in with the new mulligans or new Jack mulligans or whatever they
Yeah,
were.
the new Jack Mulligan. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was dumb. But this character, it pissed people off, and I thought that was cool. And I think he did a great job with it. He had great facials. He had great moves. He knew how to piss people off. It was good. It was good character. Absolutely. So he's reinvented himself, like you say, as a badass J.R. Ewing, and Brock Lesnar has now left the WWE. Right? He went on to try and become a football player with the Minnesota Vikings. That worked out well. Kurt Angle and the Big Show got injured, so this was the perfect time for JBL to kind of ascend into the ranks as one of your top heels. And he had the ability on the mic, he had the ability with everything he was doing to do that, and he did. And ended up winning that title match after winning a number one contenders match. He beat the late great Eddie Guerrero at the Great American Bash, and during his reign, he would defend against Guerrero, of course, The Undertaker, Booker T, Big Show, Kurt Angle. And then he formed this stable he called his cabinet. So he was kind of like trying to be like a major Wall Street guy, a head honcho, and this was his group of people, a politician type thing. He had his cabinet, and that would consist of Orlando Jordan, who, like I said earlier, defeated John Cena for the U.S. Championship. I still can't believe I said that. It would include the Basham brothers, and it would include Amy Weber in that group. As previously mentioned, JBL lost his title to John Cena at WrestleMania 21 after a 9-month or 280-day reign, and JBL would defeat Kurt Angle, Booker T, and The Big Show in a Fatal 4-Way on SmackDown to earn his rematch against John Cena, which would become the I Quit match.
Yeah, the thing JBL had as a heel, real quick though, too, is he had two absolutely devastating moves that he could put you down with. He had the clothesline from hell, which he threw great and everybody sold great. He would flip you with it, basically. And he had this killer power bomb where when he was setting you up, he would act like he was putting a cigar out on your back. And then he would absolutely jackknife you through the floor. It was about as good as Kevin Nash's. I mean, it was a great power bomb. And he could also do other stuff, too. For as big a dude as he was, when you look at him, you're like, he just looks like a big dude. He's not like cut and ripped, but he's in shape. He's got great cardio. He could go a long time, and he could do a little bit of all of it. He could lay on you and put you in holds and look like he was just grinding you into the dirt like Ole Anderson or something. And then he could do some high impact stuff too. So he was a combo of a lot of things. And I think you're right to hit on. It was the perfect moment to send him up the ranks because they had lost a couple of guys to injury. So, you know what? Let's give him a run. And it worked. It got over because, you know what? He was good at pissing people off, and that sells tickets and gets people watching. And he put on a great match. And I love that he's the one that wanted this I Quit situation. It's like, we're going basically to the death. Is how it was. And I don't know where you are on I Quit matches. Like, I remember one of the first ones I ever really paid attention to was Terry Funk and Ric Flair having an I Quit match at a Clash of the Champions. I think it was the New York Knockout, whichever number that one was, 7 or 8, whatever. And I remember that and being a big deal. Like, to get a wrestler to just, like, it was one thing to tap out. To say I quit was a whole other level of, like, shame and defeat.
I am a big fan of I Quit matches because if done well, they can be some of the most entertaining and enjoyable matches that you can watch. They can be absolutely devastating. They can be bloody. They can be everything. Like, I enjoy a good I Quit match. It's one of the stipulations I think that they do best. Some that I don't care for. Your bull rope matches or your strap matches can be really, really boring. But I Quit matches, it's basically an anything goes match, and I like that. I like that there's no pinfalls, no submissions, and I like that you have to make your guys want to give up, and I think that's a cool way to end a big feud.
And we should say too, usually the big blow off of a
Yes.
feud. It's like the steel cage match used to be in the 80s in a lot of
Yes.
ways. Was you do the cage match was the blow off. So this was the new version of that because cages had become passe at that point for a minute until we started doing them again. But because I don't think anybody ever really wanted to get out of that because it's a cool concept, right? You lock two dudes in a cage and see what happens. These wild
I
animals
love a
go
good
at each
cage
other.
match.
I do
Yes.
too, and it's sad that we rarely get good ones, but every now and then we get a few. But in this case, it's like okay, there's no stipulations, there's no rules, and as we'll get into, I was blown away by how much of this match was very much not in the ring, and I knew some of
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't going to be, but I had forgotten about that because I didn't watch this on pay per view when it came out. I was one of those that I rented, after because it came out. I wasn't doing pay per views at the time, but I remember watching it just being blown away by how violent it is. So I want to get into the scene here though, because you've already said it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Target Center, home of the T Wolves, the WNBA Lynx, and more. There's 12,000 in attendance, as it were, and 220,000 pay per view buys. Really good, solid buy rate in those days. $500,000 in ticket sales, part of a $4.7 million pay per view increase for WWE over the previous year. So they were hot as they had been in a long time in 2005. And I got to know, Brian, what got you to go to the Target Center to see this sucker in person?
Oh, it is a pay-per-view at my hometown. They didn't have those very often in Minneapolis or anywhere. And so once it was announced that they were going to have this show here, and you got to remember, this is a SmackDown only pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
This is back in the day where they were doing Raw only and SmackDown only, and only
When the
coming
brand
together for the
split
Big Four.
meant something, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was a Raw guy, so I wasn't following as much of that, but it's a pay-per-view. You got to go, right? And then especially once they started announcing some of the matches, the Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio match pulled me in. Booker T and Kurt Angle, I thought was hilarious, that whole build-up. And then the main event, you just, it was a no-brainer. I had to be there. At that time, too, I got to remember, I was going to most any show that came into town. So once a pay-per-view is announced, I'm there for sure.
Where were you in the crowd, roughly? Like, what was your
All
vantage
right,
point
so
of the
I
ring
was
and all
dead
this stuff?
center
Oh, man.
up in the second row, or second balcony.
Oh,
in the
nice. Nice.
So
So you had a
we
view of
had-
the whole thing. Yeah.
We had amazing seats. They weren't down low or anything like that, but the view was perfect.
Oh, yeah, especially for a match like this that's going to go all over the places we'll get into. But we got 6 other matches on the card tonight, as we've mentioned. You mentioned a couple there. So first off, one got relegated to Sunday Night Heat, Nuncio and Akio. I know neither of those people and don't remember anything about it. So no offense, guys, but not gonna pay much attention to that. But MNM, Joey Mercury, and Johnny Nitro defeated Charlie Haas and Hardcore Holly for the WWE Tag Team titles in a match that was a lot better than it should have been. And give them credit. Carlito defeated the Big Show in singles action, and all I have to remember of that was like, really, Carlito, you reacted to Orlando Jordan. I always felt the same way about Carlito. Just never did anything for me. Paul London retained the cruiserweight title against Chavo Guerrero in a pretty good match. Again, Paul London was a good worker. Booker T defeated Kurt Angle. They had a great match. Orlando Jordan beat Heidenreich to hold on to the U.S. Championship. Remember your favorite Heidenreich matches, Brian? All of mine were in SmackDown versus Raw 2006, the video game.
What a terrible, terrible character. I feel for the guy who had to actually play this character. Originally, the writer wanted to make him a Nazi sympathizer and put
Yes.
Nazi symbols all over him. And thankfully, Vince McMahon had a moment of clarity and said, yeah, no.
Yeah, we can't do that. Yeah.
Right. But
I think they fired the
man,
writer over that too, by the way.
I blocked this guy out of my memory for so long. When I was watching the show and he came out and did his whole "I need a friend" gimmick, I almost barfed.
Yeah,
It was so bad.
If ever a guy needed a manager to be the
Oh.
face for him, it was that guy. But
So
yeah.
bad.
But then the banger match of the night, Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero absolutely tore the house down. If it weren't for this main event and how good it is, and I'll play my hand now and say it's really good, Mysterio and Guerrero absolutely just won that. I can imagine what that would have looked like in person.
Awesome. And I'm going to be honest, I never cared for Rey Mysterio. I still don't like Rey Mysterio Jr. I think he is injury prone and boring, and I never cared for him. But when he wrestled Eddie Guerrero, it didn't matter when, WCW, WWE, those two were magic in the ring together. And so even though I never liked Rey Mysterio Jr., when those two wrestled, that's a must see match. And this was must see. It was great. And I
Yeah.
think we're just a little ways away from the Dominic storyline coming up here as well
Hmm.
between these two. So we're looking at approximately 3 months before Eddie Guerrero dies
Yeah.
in
Wild to think
Minneapolis, by the
about.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild to think about that. You didn't, I mean, you never know, right? Until, it happens and at the end, but you're like, I mean, this guy's as hot as he's ever been,
Oh, yeah.
and you say, like, I give a lot of that credit to the matches that he had. I mean, Eddie just could carry anybody and could do anything. He was such a tremendous performer, and that was a great angle to have.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Mysterio fan either, but they got a lot out of that. Now I say that it's I like Dom. I think what they're doing with him personally right now,
Absolutely.
oh man, that's over as can get. That's incredible right now. So kudos to that and them for getting that to work. But it's a
Best
pretty
thing
good
they ever did
undercard.
for Dom was let him grow that mustache.
Oh yeah, that
It
porn
changed
stash.
his character
Hmm.
from this dorky kid to, what he is today. Like,
Dirty
he
Dom.
was so hated as a heel and then so over now as kind of a heel still.
He's got the cocky heel. Yeah.
And
Well.
his work from when he started to now,
Oh. Oh
unbelievable
no, he can do
progress.
stuff now.
Unbelievable.
I mean, he's got his dad in him. He's got a lot of Chavo, a lot of Eddie in him. You can see
Yeah.
it. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
he learned from those guys, and you can see it come out of it. But he's also got his own stuff. That's what I like about him. But
Yep.
you know what? Not a bad undercard. Honestly, I got to say, for a SmackDown
Nope.
only pay per view, it's kind of small. But again, that was when they really were doing the brand split. They were serious about it. So
Well, and it was nice too because
yeah,
you were able to get more people showcased on these pay-per-views. The
oh,
Raw had their
100%.
roster, so they had different people than the SmackDown people, and I think that worked to their benefit. And if they would learn anything, it would be to go back to this model
Hmm.
and do this again because you have such a large roster, and to allow more people to get on shows like this would make the cards even better. And this is proof of it, right? You had a couple
Hmm.
duds, and that was it. Everything
Yeah,
else was pretty solid.
you've also got a pretty lean pay-per-view too. You don't it's not bloated. It's not four
Yeah.
hours of nothing. You get your long movie run at this point. And we get the entrances of entrances in this, Brian. I gotta say, man, they pulled out the stops for these guys driving in the vehicles because JBL
Hmm.
coming out with that Cadillac was always his thing, that big stretch, and he's big money man and all that. But Cena rolling in with that friggin' semi truck and the DJ on the back of it was a
Yep.
whole different level.
It was pretty cool to see in person too, man. I mean, that was just seeing the JBL truck, and even Eddie Guerrero when he'd come out back in the day with his lowrider. Those were fun to watch
Yeah.
too. And then the semi truck was a really cool added piece
Yeah,
there. That was fun.
with the DJ, we should say live remixing the Cena thing
Yeah.
as it's happening. Like he's scratching it and doing it right there. Cena's not performing the song, but he's got it there and is. I was impressed with that. I'm like, man, they really pulled out the stops on this one, And Cena's holding up that big spinner belt, and you can tell they're going to go at this, and they don't waste time, man, getting at each other real quick. Like we'll get JBL through a table pretty quick. We're going to break one of those. We get
That
color
table
real
bump,
fast. Yeah.
that table bump looked so painful
Nasty.
because of where he landed and the way that the table broke. It looked like it stabbed him in the back there.
Like right in the small
Oh,
of the back. He's got a cut. Like you can see
oh,
it.
that looked so painful.
Cena gets a chair to the forehead, cuts.
Man, you
Oh,
forget what it was like pre Benoit,
yeah.
and they were knocking each other silly with chairs. That
Yes.
chair shot he took was unfreaking believably loud and sounded just awful
You hear his
when it
skull,
connected.
man. Like
Oh.
it was brutal. The
Oh, you
shot he
cringe when you
took.
watch that, and especially knowing what we know today, you're just like, oh my god.
I know, right? Well, you see now why they protect each other a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, but they were going for it. They both get their moves in. You get the FU, which is the attitude adjustment, as we know now. It's the same, fireman carry slam that Cena's done for years. JBL gets the clothesline from hell in. We got all kinds of stuff going on in the ring, and then they get out of the ring, Brian. And this is when the real fun starts. When they
Yeah.
go to where the truck is parked, more or less, is when all the mania begins. They're tearing off the exhaust pipes and hitting each other with it. They're throwing each other through TV monitors. They're dropping each other through the friggin' DJ tables. My wife is watching this with me. She's never seen it before. She's like, these guys are trying to like literally hurt each other.
Murder each other.
I
Yeah.
said, no. I said, they're selling it like they want to, though. And you hear the crowd just on the television. I'm hearing the crowd explode on this. And I can only imagine what that was like in person.
It was unbelievable. I mean, for real. Like the view is not as good as when you're watching it on the TV, obviously, but you could hear everything. Like it was so well done. The whole thing with the work that they did with each other on the limousine, man. Did you see when they had the horns off, but they still had the horn holder on there, and they had to
Uh-huh.
move that quickly because he was about to slam JBL on that thing,
Hmm.
and it was
Well,
so much fun. And going through the limo window,
well, yeah, Cena's slamming the door on him,
oh
tears the friggin' door off of its hinges. That's a real
yeah,
door. I mean,
yeah,
that's how strong this dude. And then through that windshield, yeah, that was nasty, man. But
that
you
was
know
the
what?
capper. Yeah,
It was what you would see in like an action movie where guys go at each other. So coming off the heels of something like The Marine, which is a big action movie and all that kind of stuff, they built this match to work a lot like those kind of fight scenes and stuff.
it was so good. This match has always been one of my favorites that I've seen live, just because. And you remember, I'm not the hugest John Cena or JBL fan, but those two put everything into this match, and they went hard at each other. The microphone work where they're smashing each over their head and giving that psh throughout the arena, that was awesome
Yeah.
live.
And
They,
they're constantly getting the ref involved too. Like
yeah,
ask him. You know, I mean they're going for it the whole way. It's pretty wild, like
yeah,
how they get into this. And I don't know, man. I was impressed with how well and how far they were willing to go at each other with this, and who was willing to do what and all this. I really was blown away. And you got to give credit. Michael Cole and Taz are the team at this point, or whatever.
yep,
And it's pretty early in the Cole years, and
yep.
I remember Taz, brother. They're selling the heck out of this too. They're doing a good job
Oh
on
yeah.
commentary the whole time.
And how about John Cena's blood work? That's probably the best
Yeah.
blood work I've ever seen ever. Like it was gushing and it was all over his body. Like
Yeah.
it went all the way
Pouring.
down his chest. It was a gruesome sight. And at the end of the match, when he wins and his whole face, it looked like his eye was covered in the blood
Yeah.
and everything. Like it
I,
was nasty.
as someone who exercises outside from time to time and has fallen a few times and cut myself, there's nothing worse than cutting yourself when you're hot and sweaty because it makes it twice as bad. You just run, it just pours. And Cena, you're right. It's just he looks like he's out of a horror movie, man. He's just
Yeah.
covered in and JBL has got a little bit too, but he's got Cena all over him too.
As well.
Well,
Yeah.
like those guys like went to the back and were like, "No, you for real, you're clean, right? Ain't worry about me later, right?" Because they were both just beat up. I think the other thing too is throwing JBL through a television screen. It's not like what we think about television screens today, y'all. This is that big CRT, like your grandma's TV that she still has that weighs 100 pounds. Throwing him through that monitor. That was nasty work, man.
It was, and I think that was an awesome visual on the show, and gave JBL time to blade inside there. It was just really good. But with the part right before that, where JBL like literally rips the extension cord apart and it starts sparking all over the place, that was cool.
That was really
a
cool.
great effect, and uses that to kind of choke Cena. That was a great effect, and that really set up the TV thing too. And so just they did a great job putting this match together. It was constant battle. There weren't a whole lot of stoppages. There weren't a whole lot of, it was just back and forth and beating the crap out of each other. And I loved the end where JBL just kind of cowers and quits. It was unexpected, which I think made it work even better. And then to have Cena go through with what he was going to do anyway at the end, gave the crowd a pop, and it was well done.
JBL's backed up against this big glass panel that's like one of the logos or whatever of the thing. And Cena's coming at him with that. exhaust pipe that he's ripped off the truck that he's going to just run him through with it. You're like, man, he's going to kill him with this, right? And JBL's like, no, 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 I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. And of course, they ring the bell. Cena's the winner, and Cena looks around at the crowd and say, "You want me to do it, right?" Kind of like Bugs Bunny, like, "We'll get a whooping if I do it. I do it anyway." And he runs him right through that glass, and it was huge. Man, he falls through the entrance stage. That's a great stunt to end this thing on, because that had to happen if it's going to be the blow off, and it was. He's got to completely vanquish this dude, and this is the only way to do it.
Absolutely. And the crowd pops so huge for that whole thing. Just a really good match. Really good match. Anything, Jay, that you would change about this match?
Oh heck no, man! I think it
Yeah.
plays for an I Quit match in this era and stuff. It plays out exactly the way it should. Both guys get a lot of spots in.
Yep.
They both do real violence to each other. They put themselves on the line, and it's well paced too. And at no point is this match boring at all. I mean, it goes on a good 22 minutes, and it is a lot of violence. The longest match on the card, as it should be, and it perfectly balances out all the action with the kind of stuff you want in an I Quit match.
Agreed. There's nothing I would change about this. I think this is one of the best of the SmackDown Raw brand separation pay-per-view era main events. I think they did a really good job. It was super fun to watch in person. I remember that I had recorded this match and I bought the DVD when it came out, and every time I watched it, it was just great memories. It was great stuff. It was fun to watch this again because I haven't watched it probably in a good 10, 15 years. So it was real fun to revisit that and remember being in that crowd and the excitement that you felt watching the show.
Absolutely. And as far as Aftermath goes, I mean, besides transfusions and stitches that I hope these guys got, Cena's SmackDown run came to a very quick end because he got drafted on the Raw show by Eric Bischoff when they were doing the draft. And so then it was a bit of a war against the ECW reunion show. He would go on to feud with Christian. They would get it together at a Royal Rumble in January. Chris Jericho got involved. There was a lot of Cena and Bischoff going back and forth at each other, but Cena was going to be top guy for a long time. And even though he ended up dropping the title, he ended up getting it back, down the line and stuff. So he was a top guy in the promotion, and they wanted to put him on the pedestal at this point. Made a ton of sense.
It absolutely did. And as far as JBL goes, he wrestled for a little while longer and then went on to the commentary side of things. I think he had a bad back, and maybe from this match.
I think he had one anyway. Well, this was definitely the end of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then he became a commentator, and he did a really good job, I think, doing that too. I mean, the guy knows how to talk. JBL gets a lot of flack because he was kind of a bully, I guess, backstage. But as a worker and being able to work the crowd, I think he's a top heel in this era for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And, John Cena's career, as we say, this was the first of 17 world title reigns. Now, he got up to 16 and then held at that for a long, long time. But the road to getting there took him through a lot of feuds and matches over the next 18 years, as it were. And the guy had some of the most memorable WrestleManias of all time. I mean, The Rock, and you can name them, the times he main evented against people and what he was able to do, while also doing a lot of stuff in Hollywood. And what's wild is that he really broke in Hollywood at the end of his wrestling career. Like, he's way more popular now in movies and TV and stuff like that than he was when he was in wrestling and wrestling all the time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What I always found funny was the Cena Rock feud. His whole complaint was that The Rock went off to Hollywood and forgot about WWF or WWE until it was convenient for him. And then he did the same thing.
Because you all do. Because eventually you're back
to hilarious.
JBLs, and you got to do something.
Next up is Roman Reigns, by the way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, well, not far behind us. So as we know, but another bell to ring another day, as it were. So as we reach here at the end of this show, always fun revisiting things. This was a good one, man. I would tell people, go back and watch this whole show. Honestly, there's just really only a couple you can kind of snooze through, but the whole show is really fun. And you get to see the end of Eddie Guerrero's career, as it were, here, but he's still doing prime work. Everybody here is putting on a great show. The The production's incredible. You mentioned before, hey, you could hear it everywhere. There's some great microphone setup work, man, to make that happen.
Yeah.
That's not by accident. They did great work in this, and this main event's totally worth it. So this is a good one.
100%. I agree with you. Definitely, if you have the WWE Network or Peacock or Netflix, if you're overseas, check this one out. It's totally worth revisiting. One of the better, like I said, pay-per-views all around of that brand split era where they were doing multiple separate pay-per-views.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, folks, you can find this show on this very feed. Check out the Juice Box, not only for the Main Event Maniac show and the main Juice Box show, but all the other shows that Juice has got going on. Some incredible guests from time to time. Really does a great job covering the entirety of current professional wrestling and also looking back on wrestling, as it were. You can follow Juice on Twitter and X at Juicy Steen, on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet, and of course, subscribe on YouTube at Juicy Steen. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and hey, wherever you're doing that, if you can, leave us a rating and review and share the show on your socials. We really appreciate that support.
And if you want to follow Jay or myself, you can do so on X. He's at JRan here, and I'm at Brian Thomas 878. Send us your thoughts on the episodes. Send us suggestions for future episodes. Give us some main events that you'd like to see us cover, because we're always looking for different things. We've got a list, but we're willing to add to it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done a lot of WCW, we've done a little TNA, we've done some WWE, but hey, we're going to branch out here and do some AEW pretty soon. We're even going to do some ECW, and hey, Brian and I are not big ECW fans, and we didn't grow up watching that a lot, but we're willing to jump in to do that. And if particularly if you all know of a great ECW main event that you want us to talk about, throw it at us. We'll be glad to look at that. Really looking forward to covering all of this. We're going to get in some ROH, all kinds of things, and we're going to go back in the time machine pretty far here pretty soon. We're going to do some stuff that was, many of you maybe didn't know happened, have just seen clips of it, heard of it. Can't wait to get to all of those, and then of course keeping up with the modern product as well. It's always a lot of fun, and we appreciate y'all for joining us on this journey as we go through main events of all kinds of time periods and quality, as it were, across professional wrestling. So for Brian, I'm Jay. Until next time, this has been your main event.